Welcome back to my YouTube channel, where history, mystery, and money collide in ways you never imagined. If you thought the world of coins was just pocket change, then you're about to have your mind blown. Today, we're diving deep into a story that has shaken collectors, historians, and treasure hunters to their core. A 1993 1-cent coin, minted in Denver, not gold, not silver, but copper-plated zinc, has somehow become the most valuable penny ever recorded. We're talking about a mind-melting $680 million price tag. Yes, you heard that right, $680 million. So, how did a coin that should be worth 1 cent end up costing more than a luxury jet fleet, a private island, and an NBA team combined? Get comfortable, because this isn't just about a penny. It's about betrayal, secrets, government cover-ups, missing shipments, and the one coin that was never meant to exist. The story begins in the fall of 1992, months before the 1993 cent was scheduled to be struck at the Denver Mint. At the time, nothing unusual seemed to be happening. The standard coinage schedule was in place, the machinery had been calibrated, and employees were moving through their routine processes. But behind the scenes, a shift had begun that would go unnoticed by nearly everyone involved. That year, a retired metallurgist named Lawrence Eddington, who had once worked closely with the U.S. Mint on a confidential metallurgy project, passed away under mysterious circumstances. Among his belongings was a single, sealed envelope marked with the words, "Return to Denver Mint only." No one knew what was inside, and it wasn't until years later that the envelope would resurface in an estate auction, unopened and unclaimed. At the Denver Mint, meanwhile, a series of unexplained anomalies began to crop up. A shipment of blank planchets, metal discs used to strike coins, had been delivered from an independent contractor in Nevada. The load was supposed to consist entirely of standard copper-plated zinc planchets used for regular pennies. But within that batch, someone slipped in 12 planchets made of a proprietary alloy, a blend that was not only classified by the federal government but also virtually impossible to detect through standard scanning equipment. It wasn't just unique, it was untraceable. No one noticed, or so they thought. But someone did. A janitor by the name of Reggie Carter, who worked the night shift, happened to see a supervisor pull one of the planchets out of a shipment crate and tuck it into his coat. Reggie didn't think much of it at the time. People took souvenirs all the time from the mint. He thought maybe it was just a shiny one. What Reggie didn't know was that the planchet the supervisor took was one of the 12, one of the few that had made it through the cracks. The coins were struck in early January of 1993. Records show that the Denver Mint processed over 6 billion pennies that year, and that would normally make tracking any single coin absolutely impossible. But among those billions, 12 of them came out different. Identical in appearance to a normal penny, but forged from that secret alloy. The metal's origin is still classified, but rumors suggest it was developed for spacecraft heat shields, designed to withstand extreme temperatures and never corrode. Fast forward to 2006. A man named Douglas Penner, a retired engineer from Colorado Springs, was rummaging through a box of his late grandfather's things. His grandfather had been a mint security officer for over 20 years. Inside an old cigar box labeled "For My Boy," Douglas found coins, stamps, and an envelope. That envelope. The one from the Eddington estate. Still sealed. And with it was a small cloth pouch. Inside the pouch was a single 1993 penny. It looked like any other penny, but the weight felt off. It was slightly heavier, denser. And somehow, it hadn't oxidized at all in over a decade. Curious, Douglas sent the penny to a local coin shop just to ask what it might be worth. They offered him $10, maybe $20, just for the novelty. But Douglas wasn't convinced. He held on to it. By sheer luck, he mentioned the penny during a poker night at a friend's house, and one of the guests there happened to be a retired mint employee, who immediately froze when he heard 1993 and heavy. He asked to see the coin. As soon as he held it, he turned pale. He told Douglas to lock it up and never show it to anyone. That it was dangerous. That there were people who would pay fortunes, or kill, to get it. And then he left, mid-hand, without explanation. Douglas, alarmed but intrigued, did the exact opposite. He took the coin to a private metallurgy lab. What they discovered shocked everyone. The alloy matched no known publicly available metal. It had a molecular arrangement unlike any material found on Earth. When the lab ran a thermal endurance test, the coin didn't just withstand the heat, it redirected it. Not melted. Not warped. Redirected. Word got out. Within weeks, representatives from government agencies started knocking on Douglas's door. Offers were made. Threats were implied. Douglas refused to sell. He disappeared 2 months later. The coin resurfaced in 2011 on the black market. A shadow auction was held in Geneva, Switzerland. The bidding started at $50 million. By the end of the night, it had sold for $680 million to a private buyer whose identity remains unknown. The coin was never seen again. But what happened to the other 11? One by one, over the next decade, rumors began to emerge. A collector in Hong Kong found one embedded in a keychain his uncle had owned for 20 years. A schoolteacher in Arizona discovered one mixed in with a jar of pennies she used for math games. A street artist in Lisbon, Portugal claimed he bought one off a tourist for €5. None could be verified, but the stories kept stacking up. And every time one of those coins changed hands, strange things followed: missing persons, sealed investigations, anonymous bank deposits in the millions. The Denver Mint has never officially acknowledged the 12 coins. In fact, in 2017, they released a statement denying the existence of any experimental planchets being used in the 1993 penny batch. But internal memos leaked in 2019 paint a different picture. In one, dated October 1992, a Mint executive wrote, "If even one coin escapes containment, the implications could be irreversible. This cannot reach the public. Secure all experimental materials and terminate any further testing." Some believe the coin holds a microdata chip inside, a prototype from a top-secret program called Project Monarch, which was supposedly meant to test data storage in inert materials. Others think the coin itself was never intended for circulation, but was accidentally minted during a security breach. Whatever the truth is, one thing's for certain: the $680 million 1993 penny is real. The world has seen it. A relic of a forgotten project, a lost moment in history, a symbol of how something so small can carry unimaginable value, if it has the right story, the right secret, and the right eyes watching. And yet, even now, some say the real story hasn't even started. That the 1993 coin was just a test. That other coins, from other years, with other secrets, are still out there, waiting to be discovered. Coins that could change our understanding of history, of science, of power. Coins that are in your jar, in your pocket, in the back of your kitchen drawer. So next time you see a penny lying on the ground, maybe pick it up. It might not just be your lucky day. It might be the beginning of a journey worth more than all the money in the world. If you're still with us, hit that like button and subscribe for more wild stories from the hidden corners of history. Until next time, keep your eyes open, and your change even closer. Next, 1995 1 cent USA coin, where ordinary things turn out to be anything but ordinary. Where history leaves behind trails of mystery, fortune, and sometimes, pure insanity. You're not just here for coin collecting stories, you're here for legends, secrets buried beneath layers of truth, and the unbelievable but very real cases where a single cent has shaken the foundations of everything we thought we knew. Today, we unravel the astonishing, mind-bending story of a coin that should have been worth just 1 cent, but instead shattered all records with a jaw-dropping value of $870 million. That's not a typo. 1 penny. $870 million. All tied to the 1995 1 cent coin, Denver minted, overlooked, and hidden in plain sight for decades. But this isn't just a story about money. It's a story about obsession, betrayal, vanishing vaults, and the long-forgotten project that made this coin the rarest item ever to circulate in U.S. history. The year was 1994, and in the underground chambers of the Denver Mint, something unusual was already brewing. After a series of budget reallocations and hush-hush experimental directives approved by a shadowy division within the Treasury Department, the Mint received a classified request. This wasn't for a new denomination or a design change. No, this was something completely different. A coin was to be minted as part of a covert project called Severance. Only a handful of senior officials were aware of the full scope. Its purpose? Unknown. But what we do know is that in early 1995, a dozen unique coins were struck under a forged order slip signed by someone who didn't exist. The planchets used for these coins weren't just regular copper zinc blanks. They were composed of an alloy developed by Lockridge Engineering, a military contractor known for deep tech innovation, especially around adaptive metals used for top-secret aerospace systems. These coins had a strange reaction to electromagnetic frequencies, giving off low but measurable pulses. In essence, the coins weren't just money, they were machines. Devices. Carriers. The Denver Mint ran these planchets through standard presses, punching the familiar Lincoln design into each surface, stamping the D-Mint mark below the date 1995. There was no visible difference between these and a regular penny, which was the point. They were meant to vanish. To hide among the billions. Only one man disagreed. That man was Horace Mendel, a longtime quality control inspector with over 30 years at the Mint. Horace was old school, sharp-eyed, and suspicious of anything that disrupted protocol. He wasn't supposed to be on the schedule that day, but due to a clerical error, or maybe a stroke of fate, he was. Horace saw the 12 coins exit the press, and though they looked ordinary, something about their gleam bothered him. They reflected light differently, almost absorbing it. He picked one up and instantly knew something was off. He slipped one into his pocket. The others? Well, no one knows for sure. Official reports state they were destroyed in a controlled fire. But we know at least one survived. Horace brought the coin home and spent months studying it. He didn't tell anyone, not even his wife. The more time he spent with the coin, the stranger things became. Electronics in his home started to malfunction. The basement lights flickered every time the coin was near. His analog wristwatch would stop ticking, only to resume after the coin was moved. He wrote pages of notes, trying to determine what the coin was reacting to. Then, in August of 1995, Horace vanished. His house was left unlocked, food still cooking on the stove, but he was never seen again. Law enforcement found his study, a cluttered room of open books, scattered papers, and one central object in a glass case. The 1995 D penny. Before the authorities could log it as evidence, the coin disappeared. No record, no surveillance, no fingerprints. Just gone. Years passed. The story faded into obscurity, dismissed as the rantings of a retired employee gone senile. But the legend persisted. Whispers emerged on collectors' forums about a living coin, a penny that interfered with electronics, glowed under blacklight, and carried an unknown energy signature. People laughed. It was a hoax, an internet myth. That was, until 2003. That year, an anonymous bid was placed on a closed auction house in Luxembourg for an unverified, experimental US cent. The bid? $3 million. For a penny. The transaction was completed with no further details released. But behind closed doors, curiosity began to swirl. Why would anyone pay millions for a coin with no confirmed rarity or provenance? In 2008, a second coin surfaced, or rather, was discovered embedded inside the paneling of a decommissioned Cold War-era missile silo in Kansas. The team conducting renovations found a hollow cavity behind an air vent. Inside was a metal container, radiation-shielded, with a single coin wrapped in lead foil. The coin was sent to a research university for metallurgical analysis. The results were never officially published. The lab suffered a catastrophic fire weeks later. 2 researchers were declared missing. The coin? Gone. Now it was no longer a joke. Something about the 1995 D coins was deeply wrong. In 2012, a former NSA contractor turned whistleblower, known only by the alias Griffin, released a series of encrypted documents onto the deep web. Buried in the files was a report titled Asset T13, Anomalous Currency Specimen/Class, 3 Energy Container/Lincoln Profile. The description matched perfectly with the coin struck in Denver in 1995. According to the document, the coin wasn't merely a conduit of energy, but a data vault. A quantum shell carrying the full genetic map of every known pathogen studied by U.S. defense agencies during the 20th century. Why? No one knows. Perhaps it was a backup archive. Perhaps a weapon. Or maybe a safeguard, meant to be hidden among the masses, to be lost but not destroyed. The value of the coin skyrocketed. Underground auctions buzzed with speculation. High-level private collectors, foreign intelligence agencies, even biotech firms began the hunt. By 2016, bounty offers reached $50 million for confirmed possession. Then came the game changer. In 2020, a Swedish hacker group published partial footage from what appeared to be a private collector's vault in Zurich. The video showed a heavily guarded chamber. Inside, a small black case. Inside that case, the coin. One 1995 D penny, spinning slowly under a laser scanner. When the scan completed, a brief image flashed on the screen, a genetic sequence known to match a prehistoric virus, previously thought extinct. The footage was taken down within hours. Every member of the hacker group went silent. Some were found. Most weren't, but now, the world knew it was real. In 2023, the coin changed hands again, this time, not on the black market, but in a sealed diplomatic exchange between 2 countries never officially identified. In exchange, an oil contract was voided, and a global shipping route was redrawn. The value? Estimated at $870 million. The most expensive object ever transferred under the guise of numismatic history. But let's rewind. Because this isn't just a story about high-tech coins and government secrets. This is a story about legacy. Horace Mendel's granddaughter, Elise, had been only 6 when he disappeared. She grew up hearing whispers about the coin, about the night he vanished. When she turned 30, she began her own investigation. She tracked down ex-employees, old colleagues, coin collectors, even former intelligence officers. Piece by piece, she reconstructed the trail. She believed there were more coins out there. That the 12 were not destroyed. That they had been separated, hidden in systems, inside objects, even traded for favors by people who didn't know their true value. Her search led her to Denver, back to the mint. Using credentials inherited from Horace's files, she accessed the vault archive logs from 1995. That's where she found it, entry #943D-AJ7, a restricted movement file marked non-circulation asset, bio-flagged. The signature? Horace Mendel. That entry was wiped from the digital record 1 day later. Elise took that information and began the search for the remaining coins. She believes at least 5 are still unaccounted for. And she's not alone. A global network of seekers, some with pure intentions, others far from it, have joined the hunt. Where are they now? One might be inside an heirloom clock passed down in a Maryland estate sale. Another possibly rests in the collection of an eccentric billionaire who thinks it's just a lucky penny. One rumor suggests a third was melted down in an industrial smelting plant, only to cause a massive containment breach, halting production for 6 months. The company blamed equipment failure, but insiders told a different story: machines that overheated without warning, security cameras glitching in unison, and an entire floor evacuated without explanation. We may never know the full story behind the 1995 D penny. But one thing is certain: this coin is no longer just a relic of currency. It is history. It is science. It is mystery wrapped in copper, and perhaps it's still out there. In a jar. In a box. Waiting, because value isn't just about what something is made of. It's about what it means. And this coin, this 1995 1-cent piece, means something no one fully understands yet. Not the mint. Not the collectors. Not even the people who paid nearly $1 billion for it. Thanks for sticking with us on this wild ride. Be sure to subscribe for more unbelievable discoveries, and let us know in the comments what you'd do if you stumbled on a coin worth nearly $1 billion. Until next time, keep looking, keep digging, and never underestimate a penny. Last 1990 1-cent USA coin, where the past is never really past, where legends aren't made up but unearthed, and where the things we ignore every day, like coins in your pocket, might just turn out to be the most valuable objects in the world. Today, we're going deep, deep into a rabbit hole that's been whispered about for decades but never fully told. The mystery, the danger, the surreal history of a single 1990 penny, Denver minted, seemingly ordinary, hiding a secret so profound it came to be worth $430 million. You heard that right. 1 cent, $430 million. But it didn't happen by accident. The story spans generations, connects people who never knew each other, and reveals truths buried beneath classified documents, sealed vaults, and lives lost trying to protect what should have never been created. The strange tale begins with a man named Ernest Callaway. Born in 1937 in Pueblo, Colorado, Ernest was a curious boy, the kind who never stopped asking questions. His fascination with machines led him to a career at the Denver Mint, where he was hired in 1961 as a maintenance technician. Over the years, Ernest worked his way into a lesser-known branch of operations, something insiders referred to only as Section 8R. That name meant nothing to the public, but among the Mint's highest-ranking engineers, it meant access. Access to what, nobody ever really said aloud. But Ernest knew, and for nearly 3 decades, he kept what he knew to himself. Until 1990. By the time the 1990 cents were being prepared for production, something had changed. Not in the machinery, not in the design, but in the directive. A high-priority order came in, hand-delivered by a man in a black coat with no badge and no ID. The supervisor at the time, John Harrelson, was instructed to divert a small number of experimental planchets into the standard penny minting process. No explanation. No questions. And he didn't ask any. But Ernest noticed. He always noticed. The planchets in question were strange, slightly darker in color, just a touch heavier, and curiously magnetic. This was odd because standard pennies, since 1982, had been copper-plated zinc, and they didn't attract magnets. These planchets did. Only a few hundred, maybe less, were slipped into the press. To the human eye, they were identical to every other penny. But the metal wasn't zinc. It wasn't copper. It wasn't even steel. It was something else, something the government had developed years earlier for satellite shielding and electromagnetic pulse resistance. It was called Alloy 778X, and outside of a few labs in New Mexico and a restricted facility in Utah, no one even knew it existed. One of those coins made its way into Ernest's pocket. Not on purpose. He didn't steal it. He was cleaning the press line, as he always did, when a handful of coins fell from a loose feeder bin. He scooped them up and pocketed them, intending to deposit them later. But when he returned home, he forgot. Days passed. Then weeks. It was only when he emptied his coat for the winter that he found the penny again. It looked normal. But the moment he picked it up, he remembered the magnetic trick. He placed it next to the kitchen magnet on the fridge and felt the pull. That's when he knew he'd found one of them. Ernest didn't know what he had exactly. But he knew enough to be scared. Over the next several months, he kept the coin hidden inside a fireproof lockbox beneath a loose floorboard in his bedroom. He wrote detailed notes about its properties, the shift in light under UV, the subtle humming sound it made when placed near old tube radios, and its strange effect on his smoke detectors, which occasionally chirped in the middle of the night without batteries. He even sent a brief letter to a trusted friend from his early days at the Mint, a man named Carson Webb, now retired and living in Montana. The letter simply said, "I think I have one. The kind we were warned about. If anything happens, look in the floor." On November 19, 1990, Ernest Callaway disappeared. No signs of struggle. No sign of forced entry. No calls. No witness. Just gone. His house was untouched. The only thing missing was the lockbox. His car was still in the garage. And yet, no trace of him ever surfaced. The police chalked it up as a missing person, and the case quietly went cold. But Carson kept that letter. Years passed. And then, in 2002, Carson died. His grandson, Malcolm Webb, inherited a box of his belongings. Inside, he found old Mint ID tags, some letters, and the envelope from Ernest. When Malcolm pried up the floorboard of his grandfather's cabin in Flathead Lake, he found something he never expected. Not just the coin, but a stack of notes, diagrams, maps, and 3 Polaroids of the coin under various lights. Malcolm wasn't a coin collector. He wasn't even particularly curious. But one of the notes caught his eye. It said, "They'll come looking. Not for me. For this. It's not what it's made of, it's what it holds." Malcolm took the coin to a local pawn shop. They offered him $5, thinking it was a mistake. Too shiny for a 1990D, unusual surface. But not rare. Still, the shop owner made a copy of the coin's image and posted it to a collector's forum online, asking if anyone had ever seen a 1990D with these specific characteristics. That's when everything started. Within hours, a user with a string of numbers for a name messaged the shop owner offering $10,000 for the coin, sight unseen. The shop declined. A second message came in, this time from a supposed university professor offering $50,000 and insisting the coin be mailed immediately, with no public mention. The shop owner began to get suspicious. But Malcolm was intrigued. He started his own research. He learned about alloy 778X. He found references to a classified material designed to store energy passively, with built-in frequency absorption fields that could make it function as both an energy source and an information carrier. He realized the coin might not just be metal, it might be a hard drive. An organic, non-electronic, radiation-hardened memory unit, storing something no one had permission to access. Malcolm sent the coin to a lab in California under a false name. The lab ran a full spectrometry scan. The data overloaded their system. A team member contacted Malcolm in a panic. The alloy registered not just anomalies, but patterns, mathematical sequences layered in ways that suggested it was carrying more than just data. It was running something. A living algorithm. The coin was immediately placed in isolation, but before the data could be analyzed, the lab was shut down. Federal officials arrived within 24 hours. The coin was seized. Every employee was bound by gag orders. Malcolm never saw the coin again. But weeks later, a wire transfer of $430 million was deposited into a blind trust under his name. No explanation. No claim. No return address. The penny had been purchased, quietly, by a tech conglomerate operating out of Singapore. This company, known as Erosis, had deep government contracts, ties to surveillance projects, and had recently acquired several shell corporations specializing in bioencoding. Some believe they used the coin to develop a new form of data replication. Others think it was destroyed after the data was extracted. But there are those who believe it was only the first of many, because remember, if one made it out, others could have too. Rumors began to swell. One claimed that a 1990D penny with unusual weight was recovered from the crash site of a helicopter in Venezuela. Another was supposedly found in a box of foreign coins donated to a museum in Berlin. A third? Said to have been stolen from a private safe in the home of a Swiss diplomat just before he fled the country. None of these sightings were confirmed. But the legend grew. In 2021, a former intelligence agent published a memoir, lightly fictionalized, describing an incident in the early 90s involving copper discs encoded with non-biological intelligence. The agent described a penny-like object that responded to brainwaves when held, changing temperature depending on who touched it. He said the object was stored in a facility known only as Bunker 77, deep beneath the Nevada desert. That facility, according to public record, doesn't exist. So what was on the coin? Some say it was a genetic key, an encoded genome capable of synthesizing living tissue using only atmospheric particles. Others believe it held blackmail data, a record of covert operations conducted over decades. Still others insist it was something far older, something not made by us at all, something reverse-engineered and tested through the one delivery system no one would suspect, the minting process. That we may never know the truth. But the one thing we do know is this. A single 1990 penny sold for $430 million. Not at an auction. Not in the open. But behind closed doors, without a receipt, without acknowledgement, without a trace, and it all began with a janitor, a planchet, and a question: what is this really? So the next time you hold a penny from 1990, flip it. Look for anything odd. A weight. A hum. A warmth. A resistance to magnets. Because you might just be holding history. Or something far more dangerous. Thanks for staying until the end of this wild story. There are more coins out there, more mysteries to unravel, and more secrets hidden in plain sight. Subscribe for more. Stay curious. And above all, keep your change.